Hello everybody, it's November 2nd, 2008, and what we're doing is a little videotape here with Grandma and me, and it is just before the Obama election, hopefully, and we look forward to sharing some information with you about Marilou
and Patrick
and her life. Okay, Mom, so I'm going to just ask you a few questions.
Okay.
And this will be nice. We can put together a little video for everybody to see. And, just first of all, just tell me a little bit about you. I mean, tell me when you were born and where you were born and that kind of thing.
I was born in 1927, sort of towards the end of the Depression. I was the first child in my family, and we lived at 430 East Franklin Street. Let's see, what else can I say? Well, after a few years, I had a brother who died at birth.
What was his name?
Robert, Bobby Lee, after my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years later, my brother Dick arrived, who we referred to as Mom's baby boy. The fireman offered me 50 cents if I would sell it. Excuse me. And I went along with it, but then I said, my mother's going to be awful mad at me, so I gave him the money back.
They offered 50 cents?
Yeah, a big 50-cent piece.
Oh, that was a lot of money then.
It was. So when I was about 8, I was in the first grade at St. Andrews. And I was making my first communion, and my father decided to go into business. So he always liked to tinker with cars, so he started a garage, Averill garage, out in Alpine. And there was a lot of farmers who needed help with their farm implements. And so I stayed with my grandma until school was out in June, so I could make my first communion. And then we moved to a big old farmhouse on Alpine Avenue and leased out our house in Grand Rapids. And we moved there in March, and in October
March of what year?
8 years old.
27, 35.
I'm 35. And my brother was born, and then in October of that year, we had a disastrous fire. The whole place caught on fire. I was at school, and my brother was in a room that my mother could not get to him, but she was washing, and the doors were closed, so she panicked and ran out to the road. And a couple Consumer Powers guys came along, and they broke down the door and got Dick out. So we ended up with only the clothes he had on. I lost everything of my toys and we did get some of the furniture. In the meantime, they went to Dad's garage and told him there was no phone service, And so here we were with no house. We couldn't move back in our house because the people had signed a lease for a year. So we rented a little tiny farmhouse closer to my dad's garage, and we lived there until the summer. And then my aunt, Minnie, who was my mother's oldest sister, and her husband died unexpectedly within a month of each other in Flint, Michigan. So my mother went over and, Aunt Minnie hadn't died yet, just Uncle George. So Mother went over and helped her sell the house and the furniture and bring the kids to Grand Rapids. And she had 4 children, 4 girls. And they moved in an apartment over my grandma's house. Well, that was in July. In September, Aunt Minnie died. And that left the 4 girls and poor Grandma to take care of them. And at this time, Grandma was in her middle 70s, so it was hard for her. So they decided they should come and live with us. So they moved the 4 girls to our house. And my mother was good. She never complained. We just put double beds in rooms, and we made do. And she accepted it real well. And everybody tried to, get along. And my dad was good. He was working 7 days a week at this garage and trying to make things go. And they finally started to, and then the war came. Well, he couldn't get any help because all the men were going in the service. And so he sold the garage and came to Grand Rapids and went to work for Reliable Auto Supply. And at this time, then us kids all went back to St. Andrews School. I graduated from St. Andrews.
What year was that?
41.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before we get going there, Mom, let me ask you a little bit about your mom and dad. Were they born in the United States? Where did they come from?
They were both born in Grand Rapids, and mother and dad were from Ireland.
When you say mother and dad, your grandparents.
Yeah, my grandparents.
On which side?
On mother's side, were born. Grandma was born in Abigail, or County Kerry, and Grandpa was born in Tipperary.
And what was their names?
Her name was Horgan, and his was Price. And Grandpa was from Ada, and his father had a large farm there, and we used to go out and feed the horses. He'd say to me, "Come on, Marilou, let's go put the pajamas on the horses." Mm-hmm. So we'd go to the barn, and he got a cerebral hemorrhage and died before the war ended.
Before World War II?
Yeah, World War II.
And was he born in...
He was born in Walker.
Oh, in Walker.
And then his father was a sea captain, and he lost his ship at sea. And
no, I just want to make sure I know exactly who we're talking about. Your grandfather's father. So your
right.
Great-grandfather was the sea captain.
Sea captain.
And where was he from?
And he was from, as far as we know, England. And he had this boat, and he used to haul grain. And there was a bad storm, and it sunk, So
where was that?
That was... Where was it?
Yeah, I mean, where was he?
It was in Lake Michigan.
Oh, okay, so he was, okay.
Yeah, so he came here to Walker and he came here and he always wanted to have a farm. So he went to Ada and bought a whole lot of property. Well, my grandfather was more of a railroad buff, and he didn't want to be a farmer, but in those days, if your parents told you to do something, you did it. So there was 5 of them, and he gave each one a plot of land, and my grandfather's ended up to be Amway Corporation, and his brother's was right next to it, and like that. And
is that why we're so wealthy to this day? I mean,
yeah, right. Just good people, that's all, not money.
Okay, so back when you were a young girl, was during the Depression. Do you remember that? And you were saying that people were involved with the railroad back then.
What I remember is, we were lucky, but they used to have bread lines, and people would come and go to the fire department and get a loaf of bread and a quart of milk, and they would come with, depending on how big the family was, with their wagons, and they had to go by our house to get there. And also we had the WPA, which worked on sidewalks, putting in sewers and water. Mm-hmm. And those were mostly men that didn't have work. Well, my cousin Jerry and I used to go down and stand in line and try to get milk and bread, because we thought our mother would like that, but they were very unhappy with it.
Oh, okay.
Because that was kind of a stigma. you know, which is too bad, but it was in those days that
Well, people needed it.
the people need it. At least they could eat, you know.
Now, do you remember, I know that a lot of hobos and stuff used to travel the railroads. Did you ever see people like that?
My grandparents did because they lived near the railroad, and my grandfather worked for the railroad. In fact, he was down where Van Andel is now, and they used to have a house, you know, and he used to use flags as switch of it. And there was more there, not so much where we lived. We were kind of on the outskirts, you know, and they didn't come that far. But we would see people when we went downtown, and they, you know, like you do with their hats.
Now, when you went downtown, did you take a bus or a car? How'd you get there?
We took a bus, and when I was real little, we took streetcars, and then they took them out, maybe when I was in kindergarten. And then we took buses downtown, and that was our favorite Saturday thing to do, to go downtown and go to all the stores. And if we saw something we liked, Mother would say, put it on layaway. And then every week we go put a quarter on it.
Did you?
Yeah, well, we babysat, you know.
And how much did a bus fare cost back then? Do you remember?
I think it was around a nickel. That was, and then as we got older, when I was in high school, we had cards, you know. And I think then it was, gee, I don't remember, maybe 50, 75 cents.
How did your mom and dad meet each other?
I didn't realize this till later years, but my mother said my dad played in a musical group at the Moose. And she said that one Saturday night her friends invited her to go to a dance there. And she met him, and gradually they started dating. And then he worked in a garage up at the top of Graham Street where she lived. And she'd have to walk by there to get the bus. So that's how they started out. And of course, there was a religion problem, but Grandma and Grandpa, you know, they were both Catholic.
Now, when you say grandma, which one?
Grandma Price.
Oh, okay, so your mom's parents were both
Yeah.
Catholic.
And but after they got to know my father, he was the greatest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So they really looked up to him, you know, respected him.
So how old were they when they got married?
I'm not sure. I would say maybe, yeah, I should look that up. I'm not sure.
Pretty young,
Maybe.
though? 20s,
No, I'd say middle 20s.
maybe? Oops.
Middle 20s. And they had a nice wedding. Of all the kids in the family, I think they had the nicest, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Oh, from pictures, you know. And of course, some of them got married. It was depression, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we had some really nice wedding pictures of them and things. And
So what's like one of your earliest memories, like when you guys would do stuff together, like Christmas time? What was the Christmas like when you were a little girl?
well, we always celebrated Christmas on Christmas morning, and we would go to bed, and then they'd say, you know, go to sleep and till Santa Claus comes. And of course, we were up several times, but we always had a real nice Christmas. And I can remember the one thing my dad would do is go to his stocking. You know, we'd put out our stockings, and he always had one orange and nuts. He loved, you know, what do you call them? Nigger toes or no,
Brazil nuts?
Brazil nuts. And he would eat those, and we would then open our gifts and have breakfast, and then we would all go to Grandma's. And Grandma would have everybody there for dinner. And we would be real anxious to get back home to play with our toys, you know. Especially when Dick got electric training. He didn't even want to go to Grandma.
Oh.
And so we had a lot of nice memories that way. Yeah.
So a nice family life, huh?
Right. I feel I was lucky.
And so when you went back to grade school at St. Andrews.
To St. Andrews, right? And then I graduated and went to Catholic Central.
Okay. Now, did you have any kind of like job back then, or did you do anything for?
About the only thing I did was babysitting. You know, there wasn't much else you could do, you know. And then after I graduated, well, one summer I did type labels for Michigan Bulb Company.
Oh.
They sent out seeds, you know, and we type address labels. And then I went to Grand Rapids Junior College, and I took a business/secretary course. But at this time, it was 45, the war was ending. So they said we had to take an accelerated course because all these veterans were coming home and they wanted to go to school. So we took like 4 years of shorthand in 2 years. And
No kidding.
yeah, typing, and I took bookkeeping or accounting, you know, and
Were the war years pretty hard? I mean, did they ration stuff, or?
they did ration stuff, and the things they rationed most was sugar, coffee, and let's see, meat. Meat was pretty, but we always, you know, the lady next door was a real coffee drinker, so, and we weren't. Mother and Dad drank tea, so she'd change coffee for sugar, you know, and we never seemed to go hungry. We, you know, like one of the main thing my parents would entertain, there was 3 or 4 couples of them. They would play cards on Saturday night once a month. And their main menu was creamed peas on toast, you know. And that was it. And they all looked forward to getting together.
And having cream peas on toast.
Toast, yeah. And I imagine one of them made hooch, you know.
So did you make your own drinks?
Yeah, they did make some drinks. And Dad used to make root beer. And of course, us kids would all go and we'd all play and fall asleep in the corner. Go. But we always had a lot of fun. That was the Shanahans and the McGinns and Esther and Bill, or Esther and Red at that time.
Oh yeah.
And so that was about all you could do then. There wasn't money for movies or, you know.
No, you didn't get to very many movies?
No, not then. As we got older, you know, they'd give us money to go to the movie, but I'd say maybe, well, in the early high school years, you know, we go over and, of course, you'd go for a nickel or a dime, you know, if you went during the week, and then they were always giving away things for the house or the dresser, you know. They gave all these little containers and a brush and a comb and a mirror. But you had to go every week and you got one thing a week.
Oh.
And then they gave away dishes, you know.
So what movie stars did you kind of like back then?
Oh, I think Shirley Temple was one, Judy Garland, you know, those kind of. I'm trying to think of a man. Maybe Don, you know, the dancer coming. Was it coming? And Fred Astaire, well, Bing Crosby, all those, you know. You liked, of course, in our teen years, Frank Sinatra was the idol.
Pretty hot stuff, huh?
Yeah, right.
So do you remember how you celebrated World War II when it ended? When finally that was all over?
We went downtown, and at that time the bishop of our parish was Bishop Haas, and he was 6'8". He was a big, and we were down there cheering, and here he was in the middle of everybody. Everybody was so thrilled. You couldn't walk down the street. It was so crowded, and they just cheered, you know. it was really wonderful, to know that everybody was coming home.
Mm-hmm. So you were 18 in 45, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
So wow, that'd be a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and our high school years were we couldn't have a yearbook because, paper and of course the dances there weren't only the 4Fs to go to dance with,
What's that?
They were the ones that the Army wouldn't take. And so our social life was really kind of limited.
Mm-hmm.
But
then all the guys came home.
they all came home, yeah. We had a weather school in the Pantlet Hotel, and there was a lot of them because our weather is so different. But Mother would say, "Don't you go near those servicemen." But then Tweet, the second one of the girls that they took in, went in the Army, and she was a nurse. Betty and Tweet both went to nurses training, and at that time, you could just go and live there and work, and there was no tuition, so it worked out good for them, and so they both got their RN degree. Dorothy, the oldest one, eloped and left the house when she was 19. So then it ended up with Barb and me and Dick, and Barb is 3 years younger than me, and so we were always real close,
So I don't think you really explained how those girls came to live with you, did you?
I said their mother died, and
okay.
Yeah.
And so then your family was expanded.
It was expanded. Thank God we had a big house. and they, both of the girls graduated. The next two graduated from Catholic, but Barbara went to Mount Mercy. And but we all walked to school every day, walked home. Except if we had a dime, we'd go downtown, and ride the bus home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So football games are very important. We used to have what they called mixers, or dances for them. But like I said, there wasn't very many boys because they were all in service.
What about when the boys came home? What happened then?
Well, then we all got it reacquainted. Yeah, so that was about the time that, it was 47 before I met your dad.
How'd you meet him?
At a picnic, one Sunday, Mom and Dad were going with Marie and Ted Van Drummel to this VFW picnic, and they wanted to know if Mom and Dad would go, and they said, yeah. They said, "Oh, Marilou, come on along." I didn't have anything to do that day. Come with us. So I went there, and it was at Myers Lake, and they were playing baseball, and he was first base. So he come over, and finally he asked me for my phone number after a few times, and I gave it to him. And then he came and visited, we went out. And it was, then I didn't see him for a while. I think his boyfriend came from California, and they had just got out of service, so they were all kind of getting used to settling down. And then, let's see, in 48, the second date we went out, he asked me to marry him.
Second date?
The second date.
Wow.
He said, he didn't ask me, he said, "I'm going to marry you." And I thought, ha ha, And I thought, this is just a line, And so anyway, in 48, he gave me a diamond, and he was supposed to give it to me on Valentine's Day. He had it made by a friend who was a jeweler, and instead he gave it to me on Groundhog's Day. And my brother always claimed that he came out like the groundhog. And a neighbor asked him how much she paid for it, how many carats was it? And he said, "I don't know how many carats it was, but it sure cost a lot of cabbage." So we were engaged for 2 years. Like he was fighting a job, and in the meantime he took instructions to turn Catholic and said he promised me he would take instructions. If he believed in it, he would turn. If he didn't, he wouldn't. That he couldn't go against his principle. So he went to Father McGee, and he decided he was just wait, so he never turned Catholic. But in 2 years, and he got a job with the American Tobacco Company. He traveled, and we got a little money. And decided to get married. So we were married the 1st of July in 1950.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And happiness reigned after?
Yeah, we moved to Saginaw and had a little apartment there. And then Daniel came along 10 months and 3 days later.
10 months after you got married, huh?
Yeah, Aunt Peg used to say, well, I could go downtown now and hold my head up. And then, was it 19 months later, you were born. And then it was it 4 years since Susie was born.
Mm.
Yeah, and so that was our family.
And then how long did we stay in Saginaw?
We stayed there till maybe you were about a little over a year old. Or no, you weren't quite a year old. Then we moved to Muskegon. Dad got transferred to Traverse City. And so we moved to Muskegon. Well, at that time, it was after the war, there just was no places to live. We had this downstairs apartment. It was in a house that we had to share with the upstairs apartment. And because of his business, he asked for a phone. And they said they put you on a list. You had to wait. We never did get a phone in Muskegon. They just, that one, I think it was January. It was right after your birthday. We overslept, and he was supposed to be in Traverse City that morning. And we got up, and I hurried up, got his clothes packed, made coffee, and poured him a cup of coffee and set it in the middle of the table. To this day, I don't know, but you were so quick. You stuck your finger in the cup, and it tipped, and went right up your arm. And you just screamed with pain, and I screamed, and he came, and he said, we're going to the hospital. I said, we can't. I got to change his pants, He said, forget that. We're going to the hospital. We got to go right now. So I had to find somebody to watch Dan. I asked the next door lady, and she said, yeah, she could for a while. So we rushed to the hospital with the burn, and this doctor saw us, and he was an industrial doctor, and he said, I'm leaving this patient. He was with a man. He said, this baby needs me more. So you got really good care right away, but you had to be in the hospital for 5 days, wrapped in gauze, and I brought you home then, and I had to cut. The lady next door had 2 boys, gave me their old shirts, and I'd have to cut them off, and pin them to your pants or your nightie or your sleeper for clothes to wear because you were all bandaged. But the day he took the bandage off, there's just a little part that didn't get burnt, and he was afraid it would affect your arm, and I prayed so hard and it didn't. It was just just a spot that and then we came back to Grand Rapids after that, and we had some plastic surgery out here, and when I came back to Grand Rapids, we went to the doctor here, and he said, don't bother him with that. He said, it's going to be a conversation piece from now on. And it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not scarred for life, but I guess I am.
Yeah. I can remember we used to go to the beach, and you was swimming, and kids would say, "What happened to your arm?" He said, "Well, they almost cut it off, you know." So you were quite the object of conversation.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've only got, it's going to stop recording here in a minute.
Okay.
It says 30 minutes already. It's gone by fast.
It has. Yeah. I can't think of anything else to offer.
That's plenty.
Is that funny?
Yeah. Well, tell me about what kind of stuff you enjoyed doing with your family when you were growing up.
We used to go to Reed's Lake, and every Sunday they had a balloon ascension. And this man would come, and he'd have all this horrible smelling, maybe kerosene would it be, or gasoline, and this big leather balloon, black leather balloon. And we could go to the park and get popcorn, and we could go on one ride, you know, because there was so many of them. And then we'd sit and watch him go up with the balloon, and then Dad would follow it to see where he landed. That was in the summertime. Well, after he was in this business, it was kind of hard because he worked on Sundays, you know, and so one of our favorite things was to walk to Madison Square and go to Joppy's Dairy and get an ice cream cone and walk back. Mother would always go with us, and of course we visited grandparents, you know, and when Dad was home, we'd go out to the farm, you know, but out to Grandpa Abram's, but like I said, he put in a lot of hours.
Yeah. 7 days a week, huh?
7 days a week, yeah. And first thing the morning, get out and off he go. And then he'd come home at night, you know, and we had it all eaten by that time. And Mother would always save him a plate or whatever we had, you know. Barb and Dick would climb up on his lap, and they'd both beg him for a piece of his meat or some of his potatoes. He'd give it to him. I'm sure he was hungry, but he didn't mind. That was the kind of person he was, very giving.
He passed away too young, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He was only 67. So it was a shocker, you know. We didn't realize it, but I think a lot of it was his respiratory. He worked in this back room and repaired engines, and he had all this, you know, stuff coming in, no exhaust, you know. So he was inhaling it, and I think it just got to his lungs, you know.
Yeah.
And the esophagus, you know. So,
I thought he died of a heart attack.
no, his esophagus ruptured.
Oh.
He bled to death.
Oh.
Yeah, that was bad.
And of course, Mimi then lasted a lot
A
longer.
lot longer. She was almost 20 years. You know.
Mm.
She was 96. He was 67. You know. But
It's like 30 years.
30 years, yeah. That's right. It was. And, you know, she never complained after he died. I know she missed him terrible, but she said, well, it's just another phase of my life, you know. Which is true. You got to keep going.
Mm.
Yeah.
So she never went out with any other guys or anything?
No. No, she had her Jolly 14 and the girls and her family, you know.
I remember going up there and having pancakes.
Oh, yeah. She loved it when you kids came. I can remember you used to clean her cupboard for $1.
Good deal, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Used to tell her to put this teapot in front, that looks better. She loved it. It was fortunate that we lived so close to him, so you and Dan had a real good association with them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I wasn't over for any reason in the world, you'd run up there, you know.
Yeah.
Knew all the firemen and down the alley and come. I remember one Easter, Of course, we all went there for dinner, Easter, Christmas. You know, Dick would come from Detroit with the kids. And you were up there checking on what we were going to have, and you come home and you said, Mother, Mimi's putting screws in the ham. It was cloves.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, I remember cloves, but I don't remember saying that.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Have a drink.
Yeah. So,
I thought this thing would stop by now because I thought it was only 30 minutes long. Maybe it's 60.
oh, really?
I don't know. Keeps going. You want to take a breather? You want?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Okay, let me just hit this.